Hello and welcome to myfinanceteacher.org. In this video we're going to talk about the general stock market. Actually, yesterday we were stopped out of our really small tiny positions on S&P 500 and on Nasdaq. I used SPY and QQQ for those positions. What I was trying to achieve with those positions is to catch a bounce into the next short-term daily cycle. It would be a short-term bounce before the general stock market would likely plunge further down into the end of the intermediate cycle. Looking at S&P 500 over here, we see that the ongoing short-term daily cycle yesterday was on day 71. Usually these cycles last for about a couple of months, so I think just over the next few days we are likely to see the end of this ongoing short-term daily cycle and at least some sort of a short-term bounce into the next short-term daily cycle before we go into the intermediate cycle, which will probably give us a little bit of a nicer buying opportunity, possibly over the next several weeks, maybe in a couple of months. Or maybe that opportunity might coincide with more and more uncertainty about the elections, especially if neither of the sides wants to peacefully accept the result of the elections. That might be actually very detrimental to the general markets as well. Talking about the intermediate cycle, so far it's 169 days old. Usually these last for just over half a year for the general stock market. So again, in another couple of months we will be just within the sweet spot in terms of time for a decline into the end of the ongoing intermediate cycle. At that time I'll try with a larger allocation, but over the next couple of days I want to still try with a smaller allocation for this short-term bounce. And of course, I will update you on my trades at myfinanceteacher.org. Next, let's have a look at this optimism index on S&P 500. Again, optimism is quite high at the moment. It's at 68. Usually it would be a good idea to buy at the end of the intermediate cycle, at the intermediate cycle low, when this optimism index is at least close to 40 or lower than that. So in the medium term, it's not really a good idea to buy right now. What I will try to do, as I mentioned, in the very short term is to try to catch a temporary bounce, and even that with a very small position. A quick look at Nasdaq, similar situation as with S&P. Over the last few days, Nasdaq has dropped quite a lot from the upper range of the Bollinger Bands down to this 50-day moving average, and I think over the next few days, possibly after we retest the lower range of the Bollinger Bands, I do expect at least a short-term bounce. Next, a quick look at XLU. So far this trade hasn't really been going anywhere. Our entry is at 59.28. The price is right now just above 59. If you look at history, my idea for this trade was to catch a move into relatively more safer assets such as XLU utilities when the intermediate cycle is actually declining. As here, for example, in the second half of 2019, as the blue line of S&P 500 was sort of in a decline, XLU did actually pretty well. And same thing happened over here in the middle of 2019. A drop in S&P 500 moved some of the capital into relatively safer XLU. So no changes right here. Let's see what happens over the next several days. And lastly, a quick look at the Fear and Greed Index from CNN. And this shows you a similar picture as that optimism index. It's a little bit too high at the moment. You probably want to buy the markets in the medium term when this Fear and Greed Index comes down to somewhere below 30. At the moment it's 54, so in the medium term we might still see relatively significant declines. Just a quick info, all of my trades are reflected over here at the fictitious portfolio number 1. If you click here, you'll see the details of each of my trades since the fictitious portfolio was started actually relatively recently in the middle of this year. And it's actually divided into 4 parts: so the general stock market, commodities, precious metals, and cryptocurrencies. That's all for this quick stock market update. Have a nice day and good luck in your trades.